Welcome to the Beyond the Crucible podcast. This podcast is all about how you move on from a life-altering experience, which can often be extremely painful, to leading a life of significance, a life that's on purpose and that's helping others. As we'll see in a moment, this is very personal to me. I grew up in a 150-year-old family media business. It was an enormous company, frankly. It had the equivalent of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. It had newspapers, magazines, TV, radio stations. It was one of the largest media companies in Australia. If you're a prime minister or a politician, you would want to know Fairfax Media. You would try to influence them. The major opinion leaders were the Sydney Morning Herald, the Age in Melbourne, the Financial Review. And not only was it a very significant company, the Fairfax family were considered almost top of the social spectrum, if you will. We had large parties with prime ministers, politicians, people from Hollywood. It was just this sense that it wasn't just money, status, respect, prestige. It was all there. I mean, it's about as much money, respect, prestige as you would ever want. So this company was founded by John Fairfax 150 years ago. He came out from England. Local lawyer sued him for a story he wrote, and while the judge found in his favor that the story was accurate, the court costs bankrupted him. So he came out with virtually nothing to Australia in the late 1830s, and he ended up founding this great newspaper that grew over the generations into being this large company that it was. So there was always this sense of duty, honor country, if you will, as say in the U.S. military. It wasn't just me, just throughout my family, my dad, my grandfather, anybody that was a Fairfax that was considered in sort of the line who would inherit or would one day lead the company. There was just this huge expectation, as there was from me as soon as I was born. So throughout my whole life, I had sought to prepare myself to one day take a leading position within the company. So I always worked hard in school, which in some sense was somewhat of a mistake because not all people who grow up wealthy work hard. Well, I did. And I took life seriously, and so that only increased the expectations on me. So I went to Oxford like my dad and grandfather and older brother had done, worked on Wall Street, went to Harvard Business School. And it wasn't about what I wanted to do, it was about what was needed. I came from a family of journalists like my dad, and I felt like some finance and business experience was going to be needed. So when I came back in early 87, my father had just died earlier that year, and that really precipitated a lot of things. One of the reasons that things were very difficult after my father died is there'd been friction in the family for generations, certainly in the recent past. And some other family members had thrown my father out as chairman in 1976, which, whether that was right or wrong at age 15 that I was devastating. So my parents felt that management wasn't going in the right direction, that it wasn't being run along the ideals of the founder, and I agreed with that view. So when my father died in early 87, fresh from Harvard Business School, I ended up launching a $2.25 billion Australian dollar takeover. And really right from the beginning, things went wrong. The family members sold out. The October 87 stock market crash had our asset sale program. So we had an unsustainable level of debt by the end of 87. So for 3 years, we tried everything we could to refinance. I brought in new management that increased operating profits 80%, but it almost didn't matter what management did because the debt was unsustainable. So in late 1990, Australia was in a significant recession and the company went bankrupt. And while it still went on, it was no longer in family control. And that was absolutely devastating. It was crushing for me personally because my desire had been to preserve the company under family control, prevent it from being taken over by corporate raiders, which was kind of big in the 80s. And my actions directly resulted in the company leaving family control. And it was devastating on many levels, not just financial. I felt that I'd let my dad down, my parents down. What I did, needless to say, caused some friction within the family, to say the least. They felt like what I'd done was unnecessary. So it was financially devastating, personally devastating. And faith had been very important to me. The founder, John Fairfax, was a person of great faith. So I felt like in some sense that, there was maybe some plan, some divine plan, if you will, to bring the company back and the ideals of the founder, and I just had blown it. So it was devastating on so many levels. And it took me a long time to figure out a way out of that. This podcast is about how you get beyond crucible experiences. That's life-altering moments, often devastating, crushing experiences, and who you are afterwards is not the same. So we're going to be hearing from a variety of people. We're going to interview leaders and hear about their failures. And it could be failures and setbacks, a combination. And importantly, not just hear about their setbacks or failures, but what they learned from it and how they bounced back. It's interesting. Failure is not something that you hear a lot about in our culture. CEOs, leaders of countries are happy to talk about their successes. Follow me, look at me, I'm such a genius. But how many times do you hear people say, I was an idiot, I blew it, and this is what I learned, and this is where I'm going now? Well, we're going to talk to those sorts of people because life is hard. I think for all of us, we're going to have setbacks, whether it's our fault or not. And we want to learn from others who've been there. And how do they bounce back? So, we need to hear that. We all need to learn from that. And so that's what this is going to be in part about. But we're also going to have discussions about different aspects of Crucible leadership, how you lead a life of significance, how you get a team on board with a vision that you're passionate about. So that's something that we're going to have discussions on. You're going to hear more about my story and the mistakes I've made, as well as the lessons I've learned, and how I've tried to lead my own life of significance. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm a reflective person by nature, so I'm going to be curious to learn from the people that we interview and our discussions, so that all of us can lead lives of significance. So what is a crucible experience? A crucible literally is a cauldron in which you put metals, heat it to a very high temperature, and they form a new substance, a new alloy. That's the essence of a crucible experience. It's typically devastating, incredibly painful, and who you are afterwards is just not the same as who you were before. It's a life-altering moment that you can measure the course of your life. There was the before the crucible experience and after. Now, with the Crucible Experience, you really have a choice. It can be failures through setbacks. It can be losing a business. It can be getting fired, a health challenge, marital breakup. Either way, it's just devastating. And it can be understandable if you just want to wallow in just the pain of it, if you want to hide under the covers and say, that's it, I'm checking out. This was awful. It was my fault, not my fault. And that's understandable. It is incredibly painful, as I know, but you have a choice, which is, well, it may be painful, but now what do I do? Is there a way that I can use my pain and my suffering, if you will, to help others, to make the world a better place, to lead lives of significance? That's the opportunity you have with the Crucible Experience. So we're going to be having dialogue with people about that. And what's kind of interesting with Crucible Experiences and failure in particular is people don't talk about failure. How many politicians, presidents, CEOs say, look at me, I failed, I was an idiot, learn from me? No, it's all about, look at me, look at how successful I am. Well, that's just not reality. Most people, even successful leaders, have had failures. So, we want to learn from those that have failed and that have come back. There are lessons that we can all use. Our goal in life, in moving beyond a Crucible experience, is to lead a life of significance. Now, what is significance? Because we often hear about success and career, but significance, it's a different word. Significance is really leading a life that those that love us can be proud of. It's helping others. It's making the world a better place. It's something that you want on your tombstone. How many people on their tombstones have, look at me, I made X millions or billions, I made all these platinum records. It's typically about family, things that are eternal, that will last longer than we will. And so that's really what significance is, helping others, making the world a better place. And that's something for me that it's very personal. I certainly try to lead a life of significance. And what's interesting is money and success in of themselves, they really don't satisfy. I mean, I grew up in a wealthy family business with about as much money, success, status, prestige as you could want. Hollywood folks, prime ministers, all sorts of famous people came by, and money in of itself, it doesn't make you happy. I'm not against having money or success, but there's got to be more than that, and there is more than that, and it's significance. Leading a life that helps others, and a life that when we're gone, that those that love us can be proud of. So subscribe to the Beyond the Crucible podcast. Subscribe right here and download the next episode. Follow me on Facebook at Crucible Leadership or on LinkedIn at Warwick Fairfax. Go to my website, crucibleleadership.com, and subscribe to the blog. And I look forward to having you join me on the journey to overcoming your Crucible experience and leading lives of significance.